becomes, again, or if it is a new idea, for the first time, relevant. And then it changes. So it's not a constant progress. Economics may perfectly have been, during the 20th century, in the wrong path, at least the mainstream. And if you go back to this discussion between those who believe in mathematics and this model of the social physics, sorry, of physics for the social science and the Austrian school, well, mainstream today is full of mathematicians doing something which resembles economics, but for many people it's not. Okay? John Maynard Keynes, he played a pivotal role in this struggle of ideas. The Austrian School of Economics was the other side of the argument during the 30s in the UK, and he won. Apparently he was a better salesman of ideas, and his explanation had two things that were crucial. It was simple, and the question of the business cycle, let me tell you, is not simple. Sometimes my head really starts heating up when I read some passages. His solution for the problems of the business cycle were simple and also implied a lot of additional power for politicians. Yes?
Well, I was going to say, I don't think he's a better salesman. I think that's why people...
Well,
it's easier. Like, it's easier for politicians, like right now, to spend a lot of money when you have a bad recession than say no, we can't do
correct. But you still need the public. You still need the public. Well, let's say if all your political options were, if your political options were Keynesians, I agree with you. But remember this: you need to be sold the idea to be able. Politicians normally deal with public opinion. They search, they hear, they put their ear to the ground and obtain public opinion polls and decide their package. Well, people were ready for what Keynes had to sell. That's my opinion.
I think you hit it right on the head, what he was willing to sell. Because at that stage, he set the platform for Roosevelt to make the dramatic changes, moving from basically a laissez-faire approach to a much larger government, and introduced the concept of demand management. And that was the first time we've really gotten into a
I would say it's not the first time. I would say it's not the first time in the United States. I think the battle was before, more in the previous century, after Lincoln. But still, that was a pivotal change also.
But that was
like a second.
That was under a context of basically a laissez-faire, decentralized economy. We're talking now about a centralized economy.
Yeah, and the income tax at the beginning of the 20th century was 10% or less. So I agree with you. What's the problem? The problem is that now the fund economist is Keynes himself, and we're still slaves of Keynesianism. And when I say we, it's voters. If we voters have it right, the supply of politicians to get our votes will appear. That's for sure. So let's look a little at the Great Depression, and those who were in the speech by Bob Murphy will recall his elaboration on the myths of the Great Depression. Okay? Hoover was, if you ask most people, was the laissez-faire president who did nothing. And Roosevelt came in and changed it. Well, Roosevelt won on a platform saying that he was going to reduce the taxes that Hoover had increased. And Hoover did a lot, let me tell you, from a Keynesian point of view after the crash. So, what happened is that during those moments of crisis, the politicians see an opportunity to increase their power. It is easier to increase their power in those moments than when everything is running smoothly.
But Hoover, we know that Hoover Dam was one of the big things that was done at that time.
Yes.
By the
But his budget was humongous. His budget for the year afterwards.
And so for the Panama Canal, but they were each assets from which we've all benefited ever since.
Well, but once again, his overall stance was not of a laissez-faire. He increased the budget, he increased taxes, he increased regulations. He started with the agricultural interventions that prevented people from producing more food. The idea was, the problem was stop deflation. All right? And, well, the idea was keep the prices high to stop deflation. He authorized, mandated increases in salaries.
In 32, they also took equity stakes in banks. And they broke up uneven on it, wasn't it?
Yeah.
What?
They took equity stakes in banks.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
history repeats itself
Yeah.
every some years. The prices are different though. What is wrong with the interpretation is the cause and the solution. What the crises are, the fall in the stock exchange, the unemployment, the bankruptcies, are the correction. And any college student can easily relate to this when you speak about drinking and the hangover. The hangover is how you recover. So if you start preventing the hangover by inflating again, it's like for a college student on a Sunday afternoon start drinking again. On Monday he won't be a good student. So, and this misunderstanding about the nature of the crisis is Keynes' fault. And it's based on a misunderstanding of capital theory. Capital theory was very relevant, very difficult though, and that was his ability, put it aside. Now it's easy. Capital is irrelevant. It's money that counts. Capital theory was an important part of economic theory up until that time. And you cannot understand economics if you don't take into account, if you don't study those very important issues of what happens with capital, what is capital, what is its importance, and how capital is relevant for the purpose of wealth creation. It's not an easy subject, and Keynes simply ignored it in his theory. For him, the causes of the depression was the lack of spending. And if the private sector is not spending enough, then the government should spend, and that will solve the problem. Another thing which is crucial, what we call regime stability. That has to do with the institutional framework. Remember here? The institutional framework is different in every country, as you said. It's not the same to have the Zimbabwean currency than to have the pound or the euro or gold. It's different. People would make different decisions in working contracts, saving, investing. If they are in their institutional framework, they have Zimbabwean dollars. Basically, they need to hire somebody to spend their dollars as soon as possible and find ways to avoid them.